What we have here is the diesel-powered Hyundai Alcazar in the top-spec signature trim. And we're going to tell you today whether it's worth buying or not. But that's not all. We're also going to compare the Alcazar with its fiercest rival, which is the Tata Safari, the all-new Safari. We're going to tell you which is better when it comes to performance, which is better when it comes to ride and handling, even the last row, seating comfort, getting in, getting out, that sort of thing. And of course, we'll compare them in terms of features and value. But before that, let's tell you 5 things that work in the Alcazar's favor. But of course, no car is perfect. So we'll also tell you 2 things that don't work in the Alcazar's favor. Now this is the reason why you should buy the Alcazar, the rear seat experience. Now firstly, it's very easy to get in and get out of because of the low floor height and the wide opening doors. And then once you're seated inside, the seat itself is quite comfortable, especially the seat back. The seat bottom also, there's enough cushioning and support, but I think it's just the thigh support that is a little lacking. But then you can always slip your feet under the front seat and then you can utilize that seat bottom for some amount of thigh support. Now again, in terms of space, this seat is set to my driving position and you can see the kind of knee room I have, the kind of leg room I have, and of course lots of headroom and shoulder room too. And with this central armrest unit in place, there's lots of space between the occupant, the second occupant, and me. But that's just the starting, right? Of course, the seat also it adjusts. So for fore and aft movement, and you can recline it as well. So they've thought of almost everything. But that's where it starts. Then you have these party tricks or that enhance the rear seating experience, like the central armrest unit. You have some storage here. You can put your where's my phone? All right, but you can put your phone on charging here. You can also put some other knickknacks. You can put your cup holders here, cups here in the cup holders. You've got some storage space here. You've got AC vents for you, and you've got a charging point. Now that's not all. You also get a shade in case it's sunny today. It's overcast and rainy, so you don't really need it. And then you also have this tray with an inbuilt cup holder, so you can put your iPad or phone and your hands are free, you're comfortably reclined and you can see it. I just traveled with my 7-year-old in this car, spent 2 hours in the traffic driving, but I didn't hear anything from him because he just put his iPad here and reclined and watched all of it. So if stable wouldn't have been there, he would be sitting like this, complaining about backache, moving around front and rear, So very thoughtful and a good place to be. So if you end up buying the Alcazar, make it a point that you spend some time within the week sitting at the back and enjoying what it can do. And how can I forget the sunroof? It's huge, and today when it's raining, it's overcast, you can see these droplets on the sunroof. It adds that bit of airiness and it brings that calm and serenity to the insides, and the feel-good factor with all of this in place just makes it something that you'd want to indulge in. So yeah, that's what the rear seat experience on the Alcazar is like. Now the potential to seat more is very similar to buying a 4x4 because of the potential of it being able to go off-road. So you don't really use it all the time, but it's good to know that it's there in case you need it. Now in case of the Alcazar, these 2 seats, that's one of the reasons that you might want to buy. But of course you will not be sitting this comfortably because, well, the seats themselves are not comfortable and these seats are folded in front. But if I were to fold it down, bring it up and adjust the backrest as somebody would, you can see that it's extremely tight and completely cramped. There's absolutely no support. Yes, it's got a big back rest, and you've got an adjustable headrest, but overall it's just you can't spend a lot of time in this, right? Headroom is okay. You've got some place to put your cup holder. You've got your own AC vent and all of that. And it's very easy to get in compared to the competition. But like I said, in a pinch, you can use it, but it's the potential that will draw you to, buying the Alcazar. Now, the Alcazar might be a new product, and so many of us might assume that it could be plagued with issues, at least in the first batch. But the Alcazar, having carried over the same drivetrain as well as the platform from the Creta, means that it's already a proven product when it comes to mechanicals and electronics. So chances of the sunroof failing or the car constantly locking and unlocking itself, or even the various error messages presenting themselves on the screen, are few if not zero. Add to it the fact that Hyundai has sold so many of these new Cretas already, and since these are mainly diesels, these would have run a fair amount as well. You don't really hear about failures or breakdowns or such unless the cars have been seriously modified in some way. Creta also isn't exactly known to creak or squeak easily, which means the Alcazar shouldn't either. And if you are spending more time driving the car than running to the service station to get it fixed, well, that's half the battle. There's no doubt when it comes to engine capacity and output figures, the Alcazar diesel is both the least powerful and it has the least engine displacement in its class. So it's not going to win any drag races here, but it's not exactly slow or lethargic either. It manages the city traffic with ease. There's enough grunt on tap to not just keep up with traffic, but also make gaps and get ahead without bother. Even on the highway, cruising at 100-120 kilometers per hour comes easy. There's no real struggle to get to 100 or 120 either. But yes, I mean, if it comes to quick overtakes on single lane roads, well, it won't be completely effortless, and at times these might require some amount of planning. The Alcazar also won't be very exciting if you like to drive spiritedly in general, which the competition, at least in part, does. Now, what is good value? Contrary to popular belief, we think a lower price point or cheap pricing makes the value proposition go up, but that's not really true. When you have a car, let's say like the Alcazar, you're looking at stuff like design, you're looking at comfort, you're looking at features, space, quality, driving dynamics, ownership experience, ease of living with the car, and you attach some value to all of these bits. You also look at the competition, of course, and see where they're priced at and what they're offering, and then you build up a price that a car should have. Now, when the launched or when the announced price is actually lower than what you thought should be the pricing of that car, well, the value proposition increases exponentially. In case of the Alcazar, the value proposition hasn't increased exponentially, but it still manages to tick the value box. For starters, spec for spec, the Alcazar is over $1 lakh cheaper than, let's say, the Safari, but it also offers a 360-degree camera, front and rear parking sensors, app-based engine and AC operations, an 8-way adjustable driver's seat, ventilated front seats, a virtual instrumentation complete with rear view camera integration, GPS navigation, and an air purifier, along with pedal shifters and wireless phone charging for the second row. And all these features that we just listed, well, they're missing on the Safari. There's also more value add in terms of the better service experience and the higher resale value that the Alcazar will command when it's time to sell it. Not to mention, the look and feel of the insides is slightly better on the Alcazar as well. Given the focus on luxury and pampering its occupants, we expected the ride quality of the Alcazar to be plusher, quieter, and more absorbent than it is. It's not harsh or stiff or uncomfortable, but the occupants can feel almost everything that's passing underneath the tires. And that's never a good thing, especially when you want to enclose and isolate yourself in the car from the world outside. One can feel and hear the road joints, the potholes, and even the small ripples on the road. And instead of flattening out the big and the small road imperfections, the Alcazar just flows with them, adding to unnecessary body movement. Comfortable, pampering, the Alcazar might be, but when it comes to driving dynamics or driver involvement, the Alcazar isn't great. But we expected that, given that it starts off the Creta platform. Creta again, that's what exactly, it was never a car that you'd buy or an SUV that you'd buy for sheer driving pleasure. in that sense. So the Alcazar, again, I mean, it's not there. Now we have the diesel, and the diesel is the same that you get in the Creta, 1.5 litre, 4-cylinder. You got less than or 150 bhp thereabouts. So it's, again, there isn't a lot in terms of performance that you can have, you know, in that sense. So when you get on the throttle, you can hear the engine, it gets louder. The turn-off speed is not a lot, but it's not, I wouldn't call it slow, but it's not something that will pin you back and will get you all excited about, driving. And so the drone of the diesel is always there if you keep it, floored. I'm just about 4,000 RPM, that's where it is. But just to get, you more involved, you've got these pedal shifters here, and you can use them, though you don't really need to, because the way the gearbox operates with the logic, it does a good job on its own. You also have the option of moving it to sport, the gearbox, and then when you do that, it holds on to revs a little longer. So that's the sort of thing. So just like it is with the engine, where it likes that you ride the torque curve and you don't hustle it too much, just enough to keep things moving along at a brisk pace, but nothing fanatic, nothing fast. Ditto for the handling. Now the steering on Hyundais have never been like great steerings. Here it's accurate, there isn't a lot of feedback, and it's reasonably quick too, so there isn't a lot of turns lock to lock that you need to get it to get into corners. But in terms of feedback and feel, of course, there isn't anything to write home about. Now, just like the engine on the Alcazar, the handling too isn't something that'll make you, grin from ear to ear or get you involved or excited. Of course, it does its job when you, drive it progressively, when you lean on it, but not too much. It'll do its job. But as you start pushing it harder, you'll find that, it rolls more than you'd like. So you can't really, drive into corners hard and then chuck it. And, the connect that'll gives you that confidence that yes, it'll make it through corners absolutely flat. None of that is there. The front and the rear starts to feel slightly disjointed, and along with the body roll, that it doesn't inspire that much of confidence for you to be able to drive it very hard. And of course, there's some amount of understeer that comes in, and you got to make corrections. So you can do it if you want to, but honestly, it's no fun pushing the Creta too hard. And I don't know if you could hear that, but there's some amount of tire squealing also. Thankfully, it has ESP, so if you do tend to overcook it, at least there is a safety net in place. So these were the 5 good things about the Hyundai Alcazar. And I've told you 2 not so good things about the Alcazar. So now it's time to see how it compares with the Safari. Right, so we've driven the Safari and the Alcazar, we've tested them, we've measured them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tell you about what's the difference between the 2 cars when it comes to performance and ride and handling. And of course, we've already spoken about the features in the previous part of the video. And let's not forget the last row seating, because after all, that's the reason you buy a 3-row SUV. Agreed. And so let's get straight to it and see which is the better of the 2 when it comes to buying. The Safari gets a 2-litre near 170 bhp engine. The Alcazar in comparison has a 1.5-litre diesel that makes less than 115 bhp. So the difference is stark. But there's also a big difference in the weight of the 2 SUVs, with the Alcazar being lighter. Not surprisingly then, even though the Safari is quicker, the difference between the 2 is in night and day. Now, when we tested the 2, the Safari took 11.48 seconds to hit 100 kilometers per hour from a standstill, while the Alcazar took 12.1 seconds. So clearly the difference isn't as dramatic as we had imagined. Even in the roll-on test, which is essentially an indication of a car's overtaking ability, the Safari managed the 20 to 80 km/h kickdown in 6.37 seconds, while the Alcazar took only 6.73. So just the opposite numbers in the point thing, but the point is that it's less than, let's say, half a second and separating the two. This of course is with just two people on board. You add the full load of people and luggage, and of course the difference in timings and acceleration and roll-ons will of course be more telling in the Safari's favor. Ride and handling again belongs to the Safari. Neither SUV here has a truly plush ride quality, but between the two, the Safari is more absorbent, flatter and more comfortable. Take the turn-in for instance. It's for an SUV this size and weight, you'd expect that when you turn in, there will be a hint of delay, there might be a little bit of understeer there. None of that. The steering is so quick that you turn and the car reacts pretty well as well. So it's only when you start leaning it hard into corners, or when you increase your corner speed, that's when you'd find that the car rolls quite significantly, and then if you keep pushing, then it starts to wash by. Between the Safari and the Alcazar, entering the third row is more elegant and comfortable in the Alcazar. There's no struggle regarding first tilting the seat and then sliding it forward and then finding a way to get at the back. Now the Safari in this XE trim, XE Plus trim with these optional captain seats will cost you probably in excess of 22 lakhs on the road. But even for such an expensive car, you don't get like a one-seat button to fold the seat so that you can enter. So what you have to do is you got to first fold this, and then you got to move it in front, and then you can choose to step in. It's not the most elegant way to get in, but well, that's how it is. In the Alcazar, it's just one flick of a handle and voila, tip and tumble and you are done. Entering, again, more elegant and easier, and you just can plonk yourself in the rear seat. Seats, the Safari does offer more space than the Alcazar, especially the knee room. Headroom, give or take, is again slightly more in the Safari, but not dramatically much. But between the two, yes, when it comes to seating comfort, the Safari is the better of the two when it comes to last row seating. But of course, neither work and should only be used in a pinch. So the Safari or the Alcazar? I think Safari has its own plus points. The Safari, when it comes to performance, when it comes to the engine, it just has so much more grunt and power to go along with it. Of course, the ride and handling, again, I would say the Safari is better. So if you are going to deal with bad roads and long highway trips, I think the Safari makes so much more sense. Now, agreed. In all of those bits, yes, the Safari is better. But when you buy a car, you buy it for so many more things. You want a car that's, it offers better value, which the Alcazar does. You want better features, more intuitive features. You want nicer interiors. You want a car that's easier to drive, easier to live with. And the Alcazar does all of that, delivers all of that, I think, better than the Safari. But mostly, it's the feel-good factor that the Alcazar brings to the table that I think is a step above the Safari. And so when you buy something like the Alcazar, every time you step inside, every time you drive it, every time you're driven in it, you just feel happy and satisfied with the purchase. And that's why Alcazar is the one that we recommend.